In the past 6 months, the New York Times has carried two opinion pieces declaring that churches should stop broadcasting their worship services online. I think they're dead wrong. And today, I'll tell you why. Welcome to Coffee with Coach. My name is Steve Petty, and I have 3 goals for these videos: to help you become a better church leader, to save you time and money, to help educate, energize, and motivate you to energize and motivate your church. Jesus stood on a mountain and preached to 5,000 men. John Wesley stood on a tree stump and yelled to hundreds of miners. Oral Roberts took his tent with him from town to town. Herbert W. Armstrong took to the radio waves to build the Worldwide Church of God. And Robert Schuller stood on top of a drive-in theater concession stand and broadcast to each car in a place until he could build a church and start a television ministry. If your church is only meeting in person, you are missing the boat. In a recent New York Times editorial, Why Churches Should Drop Their Online Services by Trish Harris Warren, she talked about the fact that, for her, church meeting in person was the most essential part of the Christian faith. We needed to be present with each other. We needed to sit in the pews with each other. We needed to take communion with each other. We needed to be physically present with each other. We needed to be the community of faith, period. That was what church was for her. If we didn't have our friends and family in church, people around us with which we could be the church, it wasn't really church. And people needed to stop having online church, which gave people an option of watching the church online rather than coming and being in person. Well, that's a wonderful thought, but it's horribly wrong for a variety of reasons. First reason is that churches are inherently friendly places. Yes, indeed, we do like one another. We get together with our friends on Sunday morning. When I would go around and consult with churches, back in the days when we went around and consulted with churches, I would routinely ask the congregation, why do you come to church on Sunday morning? What value do you derive from attending this church on Sunday morning? And invariably, the answer was, I come to see my friends. That's a wonderful answer. That means that the people who are there on Sunday morning love one another. They have a good time with one another. It also means their church is probably dying. Almost always, they are dying. When I go to a growing church, I might get that answer, but I most likely get an answer like, I come because this is where my soul is filled. I come because this is where I know how to act towards people every day and reflect Jesus Christ into the world. I come because if I don't come to church on Sunday morning, I won't know how to act on Monday morning. Church starts my week. It sets me forth into the world. I need my church on Sundays. That's wonderful. But notice, none of those things means we have to sit in person with other people. It means we need the message of God. We need to hear the word preached by people who love Christ. So let's talk about why online worship is more important today than ever before. So today I want to reflect on 3 reasons why I think online worship is important. 3 reasons. Before we begin, I should tell you that way before there was a pandemic, back in about 2012, the church I was serving in Northridge, we decided that with the internet speeds we could get now, with the computer speeds we had, with a couple extra cameras, we could broadcast the worship service live on the internet for anybody to see. The very first Sunday that we were online, we thought, well, probably nobody's going to watch. It's going to take a while to build up some watching people. We got an email late in the day from a family in Texas who'd woken up in the morning. 2 of their children were sick. They decided, well, we'll just stay home. And they went on the internet and looked for worship, Methodist worship. And up popped the Northridge United Methodist Church, over 1,000 miles away, with live worship going on. They sat transfixed by watching the service, listening to the choir, watching the children's message, and hearing a sermon. And they commented immediately how wonderful it was on Sunday morning with sick children to be able to sit as a family and still be in church together. Wow, what a cool thing. Within about 6 months, we discovered we had a new congregation of people that watched our services every week. There's over 100 people who are not in worship on Sunday morning who are now watching our worship service, and lo and behold, sending in checks at Christmas and Easter. It was well worth the money, well worth the effort. But more importantly, it reached out and said, if you have to stay home today, we're there for you. And that's reason number one. Not everyone can physically attend church every week. Sometimes people are sick. Sometimes people are traveling. We've discovered that people who aren't physically present Sunday morning because they're doing something, they're out with family events, their kids are in sports leagues, come home and make a regular time throughout the week to watch it. Well, Tuesday nights when everybody home, and we're going to watch worship that night. So, Tuesday night they watch. They weren't physically present on Sunday morning, but they make it a point to watch the service later in the week. What does this allow them to do? They get to stay in touch with the announcements that are made. They know what's happening in the life of their church that week. They're current with what's happening because the worship service that they see is current and live for that week. Not everyone can physically attend worship every week. Having online worship meets a huge need for those people. Number two, people who enjoy live worship can also share it with friends who missed it. So your friends come to church on Sunday morning and they love the message. They love the mystery box. They love the anthem. They go home and later in the day they're talking with their friends or they're chatting on Facebook and they say, our worship service this morning was amazing. The sermon was so good. The choir was so excellent. And their friends say, oh, I wished I'd been there. Well, lo and behold, they can share a site with them. They can say, here's the church's website. Here's the church's YouTube channel. Here's the church's Facebook page. You can go here and watch the whole thing. And guess what? They do. And then they call back and they tell their friend, oh, that was so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with me. So you have an outreach to people, not just by telling them about your service, but now they can see it for themselves. Isn't that a great thing? I mean, think about it. You go see a good movie, you tell your friends, oh, I saw this movie. It was really, really great. And then they can go watch the movie. But if you're only live on Sunday morning, you'll think, oh, the sermon was great on Sunday. They say, I wish I could have heard it. And you say, well, you missed it. Sorry. Sad for you. But if it's online, they can watch it and they can share it with friends. And then they can talk about why it was so good. This can only build the kingdom of God. This is wonderful stuff. Number three, people who have never attended can decide if this is the church for them. As I said, back in Northridge, we started broadcasting online. And within a year, we discovered that new people who were attending church for the very first time that they'd sat in our pews had been attending for 3, 4, 5 weeks at home. They got to check us out. Now think about that. There's a lot of churches out there preaching a lot of messages. Not every message, not every church is going to appeal to every person. People are looking for specific things. They want to find a church that they know on Sunday morning what kind of message they're going to get. The theological, the political bent, whether there are children, they're going to want to know what's going on in this place. Is this a place where we might feel like we could sit down on Sunday morning and find our church? And lo and behold, they do that. They do that a lot. People now church shop online. If you don't have an online worship service for people to watch, they're not going to know you're there. It's almost like you put a curtain in front of your church on the street corner so that people can't see that you're there. In fact, most churches are invisible. Even when you've got a signpost out in front, people drive by every day, you're invisible. Change the sign, you're still invisible. But if they find you on the internet, all they have to do is click on a star, and then your website is there for them to see forevermore. They can subscribe to your YouTube page. You're there every week. It is so easy. People who have never attended will attend your worship service quite a few times. And then they'll sneak in on Sunday morning. Tell you another story, and this is true. When the Dodgers came from Brooklyn to LA, it wasn't very long before they signed a TV contract and broadcast their baseball games for free on a local independent channel. People were astounded. Wow, why would you want to broadcast the games for free? You want people to come and attend. You want them to sit in your baseball stadium and pay good money and buy your hot dogs and watch the team. You want to build attendance. Why in the world would you put it on TV for free? And they said, because once people see a great baseball game on TV, they'll say to themselves, wouldn't it be fun to go in person and be there in person? People came. And it wasn't very long before the Dodgers had the biggest attendance in Major League Baseball. Why? Because they gave it away for free on TV. So, think about that. Are you online? Is your worship service online? Are your study groups online? Are your weekly Bible studies online? Are they available to people who can't be there physically? Are they available to people who've heard what a great message it was on Sunday morning? Are they available to new people who've never yet been inside your building? If you're online, they are. Well, that's it for this week. If you have questions or comments, things you'd like to share with me, you can click that button below and make comments, or you can email me at steve@revstevep.com. I hope you find these videos helpful and worth sharing with colleagues. If so, I would love it if you would click on the subscribe button below and maybe even the bell so you can be notified when the next video drops. Plus, I'd encourage you to watch for my upcoming podcast, The Caffeinated Pulpit, which will start in Lent of 2022. Next week on Coffee with Coach, I'll be talking about systems. Growing churches organize themselves around systems. Systems are critical to your church. If you aren't thinking about systems, you probably aren't really thinking about growing. Come back next week and I'll explain. See you next week on Coffee with Coach.